Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships. So let's take on something I'm going to call the narcissistic blast zone. So it was interesting. I was procrastinating, fooling around with my phone. And I was fooling with this simulator called Asteroid Launcher, which sort of models what it would look like if you drop an asteroid in any given place. And you're able to sort of play, like there's a slider so you can sort of change the size of the asteroid and the speed of the asteroid and that kind of thing. You decide where it's going to hit, right? It's sort of a geeked out thing. I kind of actually thought it was cool. And you can see how many people would be killed by the impact of the asteroid, how big the crater would be, how far out earthquakes would occur, how big the fireball would be, how many people would die. It's depressing, but it's actually really interesting. Now then, as I do, I just saw how this related to narcissism. That it's not just the people right under where the asteroid hits that would get destroyed, but people for a few hundred miles. And to me, that captures something that I've observed called the sort of narcissistic blast zone. Obviously, the closer to the center you are, the greater the harm. In narcissistic relationships, that might be spouses, partners, children, daily employees, people who see them every day, live with them. They get the worst of it. Now, in the asteroid simulator, the larger the asteroid, the greater the damage. The same is true of narcissism. The more severe it is, the worse that people are affected by it. However, the question would be, what about the people who are a little further out from the impact zone? For example, people who may not have the day-to-day contact. It does a number on them too. And in the more severe cases of narcissistic abuse, it can really magnify the self-doubt, just as it happens to the people who are in the relationship, and you may not even have been that close at all to the narcissistic person. So imagine a situation where you worked with someone. You saw them regularly. You had a perfectly fine working relationship with them. Maybe even saw them as a mentoring figure. Then you come to find out that they were really quite abusive to a spouse, or they had harmed someone with their road rage or their horrible behavior. Many times, especially if it's a really bad story, people will think, what the hell? I actually had a decent, actually a good relationship with this person. I didn't see a single red flag. And now I'm finding out they did terrible things. How the hell did I miss it? What's wrong with me? That experience can actually leave a person who wasn't too close to the center, but close enough, they really knew the narcissistic person, and then finds out that that person did so much harm that they no longer trust themselves. That blast zone can be wide. Now, people in the narcissistic blast zone may be the people who are enraged and disappointed in themselves for defending the narcissistic person until evidence of the narcissistic person's bad behavior shows up. Maybe it's the person who introduced the narcissistic person to a new partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. And then that person, narcissistic person, went on to narcissistically abuse that person. And now the person who introduced them feels guilty and devastated at facilitating that relationship. It may be sort of an unlucky server at a restaurant or a flight attendant on an airplane that is stuck serving the narcissistic person on the day that the narcissist got some bad news. It can be the children of the narcissistic person, basically the narcissistic person's grandchildren, who have a parent who still struggles with the fallout of narcissistic abuse from childhood, and that impacts their parenting. Or may have been what made their entry into a narcissistic marriage happen, so now it's another generation in that family that has a narcissistic parent involved. It can be the citizens of a town who desperately need some potholes fixed or a park maintained, but because of the unethical narcissistic behavior of a mayor or other town official, they're left without that facility. Obviously, narcissistic abuse most pointedly affects the people in the crater, as it were, at the point of impact. But don't underestimate the psychological casualties that can occur a ways out. People who sometimes have very little relationship or no relationship at all to the narcissistic person who have to withstand their anger and rage. And that restaurant server who's so frazzled and angry by their encounter with a deeply entitled narcissistic customer may then go home exhausted, maybe lash out at their partner, and that partner didn't even begin to have contact with that narcissistic person. That's what that blast zone looks like. Narcissistic people generate bad days for lots of people in their wake. Unpleasant interactions, bad days at work, horrible interactions with in parking lots, and set off downstream reactions that can make bad days, bad weeks, bad months, and bad years for the people around them. If we were to generate a blast zone for narcissists, you can even start by thinking about it in your own life. Think about the most recent difficult interaction you had with a narcissistic person. And then think about the number of negative interactions or negative ways you might have behaved that had stemmed from that interaction. Maybe you wrote an email angrier than you should have, or were snippier with your kids than you wanted to be, or distracted from your partner at dinner, or mean to your cat. That one interaction may put a stain on many people's and perhaps many animals' days. Think about it that way, and you can see that talking about narcissism isn't just talking about bad behavior in one relationship. The blast zone is a lot larger than you think, and the effects may last longer than you may think as well. And you should go look for that asteroid little thing online. I mean, I say it's cool, like it's not cool to think of all these people dying, but it's really quite remarkable to see how the impact of something like that hurtling in from space would have. So give it a look, whoever designed them. Quite interesting and actually quite eye-opening. And if anything, what it did to me was actually cultivated a belief in how, what a miracle it is each day that this planet spins and things run the right way, because there's a lot of stuff out there that could go wrong. And so I guess each day is a gift. Thanks again.